I'm one of the nurses here, and I have Sabrina with me, who is a CNA. This is the first time doing this, so bear with us. We're just going to kind of go through the process of what we do to try to give bathing as a choice, and make it as home-like as possible, which I think is the goal for everyone. So if we were going to, dive right into it, to begin with, we start when the admission, when the admission starts. We have what we call a care plan questionnaire, and in that care plan questionnaire, it asks in questions as far as how they bathed at home and what they did to stay clean. So that would line up with the individual choice of what they did at home. We wanted to carry over with what they do here, if at all possible, if it's safe, if it keeps them clean, that kind of thing. So when you talk about the care plan questionnaire, we start off with a section that we call the personal care, dental care section. So it basically gets an idea of how their schedule would be from start to finish in the morning. How did they get up and get clean, get dressed, that kind of thing, their schedule at home. Then we would go into a section that we would call skin, and that will give us any concerns that they had with their skin on admission. And it asks for the sections of their routine, like what type of lotions they might use at home, or did they do anything special to maintain their skin in addition to bathing and that type of thing. Some people have allergies to certain types of lotions and that kind of thing. So if it's something that we don't carry as a stock type cream or lotion, we would encourage them to bring that in, or if that was an option, it was something that they wanted, we would try to foster that and get that for them if it was within reason. Underneath that, then we would kind of go into how did they keep themselves clean. We would ask, do you bathe? Do you shower? A lot of people we hear are spit baths. They don't particularly like to get in a shower or bathe, especially during the winter months. It dries out their skin and that kind of thing. So if it's something they did at home and we see that they're clean, well-groomed, we could do that for them if that's what's going to ensure them to stay clean. And then we also ask how often they do it. We like to say our standard is twice a week, just because that the frail skin, if a lot of people, if we give more than 2 showers or baths a week, it can make their skin dry out and uncomfortable. So, but a lot of people, it's their preference. Some want to have a shower every day or 3 times a day, or just at night or in the morning, that kind of thing. We just ask what they want. After we've determined what their preference is, and if we agree that that's something that we can do to keep them clean, we would go into assessing like their condition of their skin. And we have started, it's been in place for probably about 2 years, what we call tissue tolerance testing. So we evaluate their skin when they're sleeping at night. And basically this is just assessing their skin at 30-minute intervals for an 8-hour time frame during their admission period to tell us how their skin tolerates being in one position for a certain amount of time. And we can give you guys a copy of that tissue tolerance test if anybody needs that. But that allows us to then allow them to sleep during the night, which I know this is a bathing thing, but it kind of goes hand in hand that if they can't tolerate being at rest, then that presents another issue that we need to watch more closely with their skin, which could correlate with the bathing process. A lot of these things tie together as far as preference. So you also have to consider the type of medications that they're on. If they're on blood thinners, of course, that's going to put them at risk. Anything like that you need to be conscious of, and you would want to put that in the care plan. Diuretics are a big one that could increase their urinary incontinence, which could put them at risk. So any history of pressure ulcers, skin concerns, sometimes they'll come and they'll be a little excoriated, and maybe they need to be cleaned up a little bit more at the beginning as we get them back on the road to recovery, but you can always back off from that later on if they've never had an issue with that before. Do they need help repositioning? Make sure that's included in a factor in their choices. If they need you to help them do more, you know, that's going to put their skin at risk if we don't have them on a repositioning schedule or going back with a tissue tolerance test. Nutritional concerns, and that's something we ask about, you know, diabetes, vascular disease, that kind of thing. That all needs to be brought into the picture as far as their risks. And we also put them on a weekly skin monitoring. Most of the time, that's kind of set up for us here, where the nurse will just try to do it if they're going to the bathroom or on their showers or something like that. But we do that as a schedule at least once a week, but that's something that our CNAs know, that if they're getting them dressed in the morning and they find something that they didn't see, they know to call the nurse down there. So that's part of the skin section when we assess them. And then I kind of touch a little bit on the bowel and bladder. You know, do they need help getting to the restroom, that kind of thing. If they take themselves, they may not need to be cleaned up as much, and so therefore that might eliminate the need for having a bath as often or that kind of thing. It all is dependent on the person. So incontinence products, we started using a 12-hour brief, which kind of goes hand in hand with our tissue tolerance testing. If they can tolerate, we don't typically go past 8 hours if they need help repositioning. We put a 12-hour brief on them when they're assisted into bed, and that allows the moisture to be pulled away and let them sleep that entire time frame, but not put their skin at risk. Now, that's not to say just because they tolerated 8 hours with having issues and 3 days later they come up with a little bit of redness, that we don't revamp that and do that test again, or put them on a more stringent turning schedule to heal that up and then put them back to their preferences. So sometimes you can't always stick to that schedule. You have to know how to change and modify until you get over that situation and then go back to it. Okay, so the next thing would be providing multiple bathing options. So they come in and they want to do something that we don't necessarily agree that is going to keep them clean and healthy, and maybe we notice that they have an odor or they're in the same clothing, that kind of thing. We'll present multiple bathing options. You know, the whirlpool we have, showers that we have. We also purchased inflatable basins, which people who tend to spend a lot of time in bed and don't want to get out, that's where they can actually get a good head washing. I know that the CNAs, and Sabrina, you can pop in if you want to, they do different times of the day, which on the questions we'll get to a little bit later, the alternative times of day, we don't really consider our schedule as a good reason to not give a bath. If they want a bath during the supper meal, then that's going to happen. We do that. We have staggered our staff to where that's really not quite an issue anymore, because they come in at multiple times. It's not 6 to 2, 2 to 10. I mean, we'll have CNAs that come in from 12P to 2A. So we've adjusted our schedule to accommodate anything that might come up. We don't really have anybody that I can think of where we would have to break up the tasks, but I did include that just for food for thought. If you have to maybe, you have somebody who has end-stage congestive heart failure and can only tolerate having their upper body washed, and then you have to come back later on in the day and finish the lower body, that's something we would foster, just making sure that they do get clean. So that they're not odorous or at risk for skin concerns. Can you think of any other options I wasn't thinking of?
Not really. Just
some people never take a shower; they just go in and we do
have quite a few residents that prefer what they call a wipe down. It's literally just then they want to be wiped down with a washcloth and a little bit of soap while they're sitting on the toilet getting ready for the day.
And then the beautician comes in every Tuesday here, and then we'll wash their hair and reset it with a perm or something. So they are getting clean, just not in the head to toe fashion that you would think of a typical shower or a bath. So,
and we always make sure to do very good peri-care, just so they're clean all the time and feel good.
And that's a separate schedule we have from the bathing too. We assess their bowel and bladder patterns if they have problems with incontinence. And if we can establish a pattern, obviously we do, and we'll set it for not necessarily time frames, but say they're more wet in the morning hours before breakfast instead of after breakfast or something like that. We'll make sure that the care plan reflects that, you know, hey, go and help them to the bathroom before they go to breakfast, because this is the time that they're normally incontinent, and go from there. So it's not just the bathing as a single factor. You have to consider everything that they need. You agree? So residents have input in who assists them. That kind of goes without saying. Our residents here kind of get attached to what we call their primary, staff. We have a set schedule, so we have people that go 10-hour shifts from Monday through Thursday, and then we have the weekend crew that is Friday through Saturday, and they work 12s. So there are certain people that give certain residents their showers on certain days because the resident knows that's the day that they're going to be there. And they don't want anybody else to do it. So we just pray that they don't get sick. So that's kind of how it works out. We try to have a backup. I know from a nursing standpoint, if there's not a certain CNA that can help a resident, they'll come to my office and ask me to give them a shower that day. And you just have to be willing to, do that. I mean, that's just the way it goes. Which there was another question that I had read earlier about a resident wanting a shower during the night, and that there's not enough staff. That nurse needs to be able to help out if that needs be. So, we honor the resident choices of staff if possible. Another example is male or female assistants. Sometimes a male only wants a male to assist them. That's not typically the way that it happens, but sometimes that can be, or maybe that male needs only a male to assist them so that there's not any issues. That's not necessarily preference, but it could be where you just tell them it's a better idea for this to happen so that there's no issues. We get you clean, we get done and go from there. So, that's a whole nother ballgame there. Female, we do have a female resident here who only typically likes female assistants, but you'll run into that time frame where there's only a male and you just have to have a care plan. There's only a male here. I will wait to be assisted with my bathing until there's a female staff available. And if they agree to that, make sure you have it explained away in your care plan that's what their preference was, to wait. So residents have a choice in when and where they bathe. We kind of touched on that. That's something we address as soon as they hit the building in that care plan questionnaire. When did you do it at home? When do you want it here? And where? Some people refuse to go down to the shower room. If that's their choice, that's their choice. Let's see, I just want to make sure I'm putting everything or saying everything I wrote down. I did put in here that it's not a specific time unless requested by the resident. The girls I've noticed when they come in, if there's somebody that we have on our schedule that's to receive a shower through that day, most of the time they know when they want it. But if it's somebody who doesn't really care, they'll just go, hey, I'm going to have some free time after lunch. Do you want to take your shower then? And that gives them the option of saying, no, I think I'll wait until bedtime or something. Do you have anything to add to that?
They pretty much all just go with the flow.
Yeah.
There's a few that would rather have theirs in the evening time, like before bed, and there's some that want to right when they get up before they even get their clothes on. That way they don't have to go down and change and then have their shower and then have to change again.
And I have noticed a lot of them, you worry about trying to do the task during like meal times when it gets heavy, but the residents are really worried about the girls sometimes. And they don't want to do it at busy times because they know that they're busy. So we don't run into that a whole lot where they're demanding to have a shower during the busiest time, because they can see if the girls are busy or not. So I don't typically see that as an issue. And that kind of went into the practice accommodating daily preferences. I mean, we just ask. They tell us what they want, and we do it unless it interferes with a skin issue or those type of things. You know, we do what they want. Bathing alternatives. Staff is trained on bathing alternatives. We do on admission, or I'm sorry, on hire, bathing without a battle video, and I think we review it annually too.
Yes.
At a certain time to make sure that anybody that may have missed it, wasn't present at the in-service or something, it's a yearly review. And on hire. We also, I put here that the staff have the ability to deviate from the bathing care plan. Now, keep in mind that's within reason. If, you know, someone typically takes a shower, but they were like, you know, I don't really feel like taking a shower today. I want to go down and take a whirlpool. The CNAs do not need to clear that with anyone. They just go and take them down for a whirlpool, and then they let the nursing staff know. Now, if it's somebody who has a dressing that's non-removable, the CNAs will be like, oh, that's different. Okay, I better go make sure with the nurses that I don't remove this dressing. It's communication, and we foster that. If for some reason that they continue to have a pattern of wanting to do the whirlpool maybe once a week and a shower the next week, we alter the care plan to reflect that, and that CNA will let the nurses know, you know, for the last couple of weeks they've wanted a whirlpool. We need to change the care plan, right? I mean, that's kind of. Residents are supported in bathing alternatives. Yep, we don't get on to them just because they decide they don't want to take a shower. If we can convince them to do anything to get themselves clean, that's good for us. Go in the bathroom, getting cleaned up at the sink. Just you know, good peri-care, washing their back, putting some lotion on, new clothes, we're good. We'll just document that and try to hope that we can get that shower on that next scheduled day. Or even offering, you know, I know you don't want it today because you said your stomach hurts. Can we come back tomorrow and try it? And go from there. You have to be willing to give them options and move around your schedule. Everything doesn't have to be so set in stone. As long as they get it, that's the ultimate goal. And when you're talking about like the cognitively impaired, just remember to include the family or the previous caregivers. If they're coming from another nursing home or the family was caring for them at home, it's important that you learn their routines, because if you're having trouble with someone who doesn't recognize where they are, but maybe they have a specific way that they like to be bathed, that might be a lot easier if you do what the other person was doing. So including the family or previous caregivers in those initial days of admission on how do they like things, what lotion did they use? You know, sometimes the sense of smell of a certain type of lotion can be soothing to them. You know, you just have to think outside the box on how we can make this transition the best as possible, even if it's temporary. Right? Anything else on that one? And I think that was about it. I mean, we just wanted to make sure to give you guys some ideas on how we do it. It's pretty laid back, honestly. There's not, you don't have to stress so much when they come in the building. Just make sure that you're asking those questions, just not assuming. And it starts by having a document to write those questions down so that other people can see that. And all of the staff read the care plan and have access to the care plan. And we don't just review certain sections. Activities will be present when we go over personal care, bathing, that kind of thing, because maybe there's something that they told activities that we weren't aware of. So making sure all of your interdisciplinary team is present during care plan review and sharing that stuff with your team. So Lacey, do you want us to go straight into questions, or what do you want us to do?
Yes, please do so.
Okay, I'll start with the ones that you guys sent us first. I don't know if there's any up on the chat. Is that okay to start with the ones okay. So I'll just go ahead.
Yes, and while you're doing that, if If people do have questions, please submit them in the chat, and we'll continue to do that throughout the call.
All right.
One of the questions was, aside from training, how do you assess that CNAs are doing BAS and utilizing new procedures? We asked the resident and the family if they are getting their preference at the time of their care plan. Like, we asked the family for any concerns or if they don't feel like things are being done appropriately. Another question was, what is the best way to care plan a resident's lack of desire for bathing without saying non-compliant or refused care? We determine why they do not have what we would consider a normal option and implement what they did at home, and it keeps them clean and odor-free. We use the I-format care plans, so you will see something similar to this.
It's stated in the care plan like this.
It'll say, I get cold easy, so I do not want to bathe or shower, and my preference is to take a spit bath at my sink. Another question was, have you encountered trouble with state survey on a resident who has skin breakdown and continually declines the offer for a shower? Sorry. How did you manage that? And we have not had this with it. Like, this hasn't been an issue, but management starts with their care plan, and you make sure you have documented the bathing preference, and if they have a history of declining that bathing preference. We also document that care rejection in the nurse's notes or the alternative staff. The staff we're all trained to offer like various options. Like, it doesn't have to be a shower, it can be a spit bath or what they call a wipe down, or just a bed bath with the inflatable basin, so where they still get their hair washed appropriately.
There was another thing on that mentioned too. I know that we had a resident who's no longer here, but they did oriental bathing, and what they would do the showers with us, but the family member would come in once a week and pick them up and take them home to have an oriental bath, which I'm not really sure.
It was literally, this woman's bath was so, like, the water was so hot, and you literally just scrubbed her with this loofah.
It was like a peel, like,
It was scary when you were giving her the bath, because you felt like you were going to scrub her skin off. But that's just what she'd done her entire life.
And I think that didn't the family kind of educate you guys on how to do that?
We were trained by the family.
We didn't know how to do it. They initially were taking her home to do it, and the family, of course, couldn't always do that when this resident wanted it. So it was one of those things that, don't be afraid to tell them, we have no idea what that is. Can you tell us? Can you help us? How can we do this to make it easier on you and the resident? So.
Okay. If the residents just don't want to shower, then the other things to include in the care plan are the options you've tried, or the tissue tolerance testing. Show the surveyors that you're aware of the risk and you're trying to prevent breakdown. Physician and dietitian recommendations, skincare alternatives, apply creams and protective dressings to area, and
nutritional interventions.
Yeah.
A lot of times we'll put things into place, not that they necessarily have a skin issue, but we think that they might, and we still want to do everything that we can to prevent that from happening, because you guys know as well as we do, prevention is the key, but sometimes people are risk to themselves. So as long as you can even say, I offered this, they didn't want it, so we did this, they did want this, we hope it helps, we're aware of the issue, but right now it's not going to, we're aware that could be an issue, but right now it's not an issue. So this is doing everything that we're doing, and if a skin issue does arise, then we'll revisit that subject later. See, we kind of told you that we were worried that your bottom was going to break down. Now that you do have breakdown, can we maybe do showers, twice a week instead of just getting cleaned up, at least until you get healed up, and maybe you might like it, that kind of thing. Being willing to work it out and give them a choice and let it be their decision.
Oh, you're fine.
Did we include too? Just to remember too, which Lacey kind of make sure that you're offering the alternatives. If they say, no, I don't want a shower, no, I don't want a bath, give them a variety of things that you can think of that other people might have tried. Well, how about we just wash your hair up in bed and maybe just clean you up a little bit and then lotion you down or something like that. Give them alternatives. Don't just accept that they say no. Try to make it work in whatever way that you can. So, okay.
Can I interject here on that particular one as well? You know, something from the surveyor's perspective that's really important to remember is that, you know, documenting in care plans refusal and documenting what you've tried and all that stuff are really good best practices. But from a surveyor's perspective, they want to see demonstration that you're not just writing down a big case for this person is really not cooperative in bathing, that you're really continually assessing that resident, continually trying different things, not forcing things on the person, not, you know, coercing them to do things, but really collaborating with that resident, learning information about that resident and really getting to the root issue of why they don't want to bathe, for instance, that you've tried a lot of bathing alternatives and that you continue to work through those things, especially if they do have skin issues. And bathing alternatives in and of themselves are acceptable ways to maintain hygiene if the person's skin is remaining intact. When it does become a point where we as providers need to intersect is when a person is having issues with their skin or having a unfavorable outcome, and we need to really educate them on those risks like Nikki was talking about. You know, your skin is broken down now. These are some options we could try to get that skin back intact, kind of thing. And so it's a continual collaborative process and a continual care planning process, particularly if a person's skin is not holding up. Now, if the person's skin is holding up, that's a different story. You have a care plan with alternative bathing practices in place that does maintain their hygiene, and that's an appropriate intervention. So anyway, go ahead.
No, that's good. I mean, you say about as far as collaborating, you know, when the skin issue arises, of course, you always have to revamp your care plan. So that doesn't necessarily have to be on the quarterly basis where we meet for care plans and we go, are you sure you still don't want to go in and get a shower? I mean, you don't want to bug them about it, but yes, you do want to say, you know, is this still your choice? Is this still what you want to do? Or were you just making that decision because you were mad at your daughter because she put you here? You know, I mean, you have to make sure that that care plan is still current. So that's a good thought process, and be willing to edit and revamp that care plan when you learn something new about that person in between care plan meetings. So, okay.
And another question was, we do not have a Whirlpool tub. How can you offer resident choice when your building's utility are limited to a shower only? We actually bought an inflatable basin. And what you do is you can just take it down to the resident's room, and if they don't want to shower and they would prefer to just have a bed bath, this tub you just slide under their head, and you can just actually wash their hair just like you would in a normal Whirlpool or a shower, and make sure that it's cleaned and everything like that without them having to have like just no rinse shampoo or something to that extent.
And another thing, not that I think it's a good idea to put it back on the family, but say that you've got that really hands-on daughter who just loves that they're here, but they're upset because their mom really wants a bath, but it's not within our means to provide that actual bath. Would that family member be willing to take mom home every Tuesday and give her a bath and spend some quality time with her and bring her back? Not that we're pushing that care on there, but if that would make mom more happy, and that would be time that they can spend together, and that's something that we can provide her training on how to give that assistance or send a CNA with her. I mean, you really have to think outside of the box. We don't have money to do these things, but there are so many ideas to make it work to get them clean.
From a peak perspective, What we would expect is that you're providing as many options as you have possible in your home. And if you don't have a whirlpool, then that would not be an option, and that you let people know that when they move in. That might make a decision for them when they're choosing a place, that if they really want a whirlpool and you don't have that option, they may choose not to come live with you there. We would suggest that as you plan for the future, if you are doing remodels, if you are going to renovate your home, that you consider that as an option to include in the future plans to add. And we've worked with a couple of homes in the program that have been really resourceful in finding community grants for something like that, and wrote for a grant specifically for some of those purposes. And that was on their own initiative. It was something that was important to their residents, and so they went after some dollars and found it. So there's some thinking outside of the box ways to do it without, if the budget doesn't specifically allow for that. And also just when you're visioning for the future, thinking about that and what your customers and the residents want. And if that's something important to them, really be sure to include that in future planning. So go ahead, Nikki.
Good options, good options.
This question was, we have a resident that continually asks for a shower late at night around 10 p.m. Our building is small and only allows for 2 aides on the overnight shift. If we honor her choice and attempt to give her a shower after 10 p.m., our residents wouldn't be properly attended to either. What, in your opinion, is the best way to handle this other than hiring another aide on the 10 to 6 shift? We utilize our nurses. The night nurse is there and requests that they clear their schedule for the time to answer the call lights to give the shower, or have them give the shower themselves, because most of the time it's not going to take very long at all to give a person a shower. The next question was, how have you worked with staff who do not consider alternative bathing options as a bath or shower? And it starts with education. Some people do not believe that if the resident is not changed every 2 hours, or they don't get out of bed, then they aren't clean. We hold meetings about tissue tolerance testing, and we assess and determine their risk. We've purchased 12-hour briefs, which they're more expensive, but they help with moisture, and we also explain this to the staff. With some staff, we just have had to give them time, and then they're able to recognize the residents stay clean and have no wounds. It's all about just how to approach things.
Getting away from that institutional model is difficult for some people who may have been in the game for a while, and it doesn't matter what you say, you just have to present your evidence and show them, yep, see, they slept all night long in a 12-hour brief for the last month and they don't have any breakdowns. So this is tried and true. Sometimes it's just giving it time to let the evidence show itself. So are there questions over here, Lacey?
Okay, we don't have any submitted yet.
Oh, there's one. I would like a copy of the care plan questionnaire.
Yeah.
I can send that to you, Lacey, and you can send it out to everybody if you want.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah, there were several people who asked about the care plan questionnaire and tissue tolerance tests. So thank you for being willing to share that. And so if you are interested in those resources, please email us at the Gmail account. I've got a couple of requests here, and I think I know which homes you are based on my knowledge, but it would be helpful if you'd also send an email just to make sure that I get the right person. So we don't have any other questions. We might give it just a couple of more minutes for that. If you don't have any further questions, you may exit the call at this time, but we'll stick around in case somebody does have a question. And I would just like at this time to formally thank Prairie Mission Retirement Village for sharing. And the ladies that joined us today are nurses and direct caregivers, and so they have that kind of background to share. you guys could share your particular positions there if you'd like.
I am the Assistant Director of Nursing and the MDS Coordinator, and of course I'm on call, so I work the floor sometimes. So I have to give my CNAs due credit here. I wouldn't know necessarily their day-to-day routines and what things work for them unless those CNAs communicated with us. You know, we have to keep in mind they literally are our eyes and ears, and so if we don't respect that and take their advice at what would work with the resident, then we don't have a well-rounded picture because we don't see the things that they see. We're usually all business most of the time when we go in. Treatments, medications, you know, the documentation is in place for the legal prospect. The CNAs have a little more ability to be their friend and promote what they want, you know, and make us look outside that box. With